Deputy Murphy. Call now on Deputy Clare Daly.
Thanks, Ceann Comhairle, and thanks for the offer of extra time. I might take a bit of it, but I noticed the Minister was a little bit touchy yesterday during the criminal justice debate, so I wouldn't like to delay him from his lunch, so I'll try and be as brief as I can. But I have to say, listening to the debate from my office, I did hear a lot of commentary from the government benches, which I would have to describe as patronising claptrap in many ways. Now, I don't know how many women from Darndale or Moyross are on the Constitutional Convention. Not too many, I would think, and I have to say that there was a whopping discrepancy between the lofty aspirations that we're hearing from the government benches and the reality on the ground for women as a result of the consistent cutbacks that government have embarked on. And we've seen the evidence presented in study after study that the brunt of your cutbacks have fallen on the shoulders of women. How can women possibly participate in public life when they bear the burden of childcare, the most expensive childcare in Europe, when they have a scenario where their wages are still less than 80% those of men, where older women are more at greater risk of poverty than older women than older men, and so on. I won't bore the deputies with the details. The information has been well flagged and highlighted. So I think we have to have a sense of proportion here and look at this in reality. There is a huge gulf between equality and reality if you're pursuing a policy of austerity which disproportionately affects women and in actual fact exacerbates inequality. And as long as these issues aren't tackled, we can have all of the aspirations that we like. I'm sure, like all of the other deputies, on a weekly basis we receive calls from women grappling who can't get rented accommodation because landlords won't take rent allowance, women left maybe by their partners struggling with the mortgage which they can't pay and having to deal with the children and all of the other pressures that come to bear. So I think first and foremost we have to put this issue in that context. But, you know, when we look at Article 41.1, I really think that these articles should be removed and that's what we should be looking at. I note the comments made by the Convention linking it to the issues of carers and so on. To me, that's sort of been a bit politically correct or making it, you know, gender neutral. To me, that's a separate issue. Let's be clear here. The intention of Article 41.21 and 41.22 was to limit the role of women and mothers in society. That's what it was designed about. It was an article that should never have been included in the first place and one which we should be taking the opportunity to get rid of. And I would reject the idea that it reflected a more conservative time. I just don't think that's true. When we see the commemorations going on at the moment, at the start of the lockout, the phenomenal role played by women workers, in particular laundry workers and so on in the lockout and the struggle for independence, you could see that women did play a very real struggle. In 1922, actually, there were quite a lot of rights for women enshrined in the Constitution. Obviously, we know Countess Markievicz was one of the first cabinet ministers anywhere in the world. So it's not that it was a case that women fought for their rights. Of course they did do that, but we had an unusual situation in Ireland that in actual fact many of the rights which women had in the early years of the state were subsequently rolled back on and taken away from them by successive government legislation. And we saw that in the married women being banned from being teachers, that ban being expanded into the civil service, women not being allowed to serve on juries, the minister having the power to restrict the amount of women working in certain industries and so on. And that was a process, a conscious process in my opinion, by the state, which culminated in the Constitution of 1937, which firmly put women in the home, and where the papers reported at the time that the reason for this was that the government of the day wanted to make sure that women wouldn't be wrenched from the bosoms of their families, from their cherished household duties and from the preparation of their husband's dinner. Obviously written by people who never had to wash clothes in cold water or try and keep a tenement clean or keep your children fed when there was no money to go around. And that was really rooted in an ideology which didn't see women as citizens, but really was about keeping women in part out of public life. Now, true equality does mean the recognition of difference. Women are clearly different from men, most particularly in the area of reproduction and so on. So supporting children and supporting mothers is a key road to dealing with equality. And I think while dealing with these issues economically is the most positive step forward, I think as a signal and as an ideological statement, removing these provisions from the Constitution would be a far greater step in the direction of egalitarianism, of recognising people as citizens, that the family and the nature of the family has changed forever, and that home life also has changed forever, and we should be supporting people to be economically independent and to live the lives they choose in whatever family formation best suits their needs.